So as soon as I finished that last video and started making myself some food, I just kept getting more and more information about this idea, this topic. So you can think about it this way. A rock is a very static thing, right? There's not a lot of changing there. It's just a rock. As you move into the plant world, you have a world where there's constant change, there's constant growth. But there's not a lot of, like, a tree is a tree, right? It's very statically a tree. You can think of it as like a constant emotional state of love and of giving. I think that plants are just like how they are. But they are constantly growing and changing, right? Growing and dying and changing all the time. And then you think about animals, and you can see that there is more change happening all the time with them. They have different moods, feelings. You look at a cat or a dog and you can tell like they are experiencing a lot more change, right, than say a tree or certainly a lot more than a rock. So as we go up this scale of increasing complexity, we have an increasing number of facets to the thing. So humans are super multifaceted. We have a lot of different ways that we can be, ways that we can show up, right? As an example, the way you might interact and show up with your child would be very different than you interacting with your mom, right? A different piece of you is called to be and exist in that moment. You might call to be more compassionate with your child, depending on the scenario. And this conversation with your mother may require you to have, let's say, some boundaries. Like you need to enforce some boundaries about something or whatever. I think you can understand what I'm talking about. And what I'm not talking about is having a false face in different scenarios, because we do that a lot too, where we try to be what we expect someone else wants us to be. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being totally authentically you in the moment as is called for based on who you're interacting with. And that's what humans are meant to do. That's what we're designed to do. We're very complex. We have all these different ways to being at different times. You might need to be a space for someone else to express in one interaction, and in the next interactions, the other person is a space for you. A different person is being a space for you while you release, what's coming up. So these are totally different aspects of you at display in every, situation. You might need to just listen to what someone has to say. You might need to hold and cuddle and love this other person, right? In that way, because that's what's called for. It's always, we're in constant change, I think is the main thing to understand. We are not the same. Like a rock is the same as the same as the same as the same as the same, right? A tree, it's closer to a rock than it is to an animal, maybe, or right in the middle, right? In the amount of sameness that exists in it. And then you have the animals, and then people are we are changing constantly because we're incredibly complex. We've got all these different things like physical body, emotions, the mind, and they're all interacting in this hugely complex thing. And then we're interacting with other people. And that's normal. That's how we're supposed to be. That's the truth of us, is to just be who we are, truly in the moment and what's called for, and follow the guidance inside you. So I hope that makes sense. It made a lot of sense to me with these different layers, and how as we get more complex, there's more change evident. We are like weather. It's changing. It can change at a moment's notice. That's what human beings are like. Much more like weather than like animals. They have emotions too, but we just really can change rapidly and be a different aspect of ourselves, right? In a given scenario, with a given person, a given interaction, even interacting with an animal. If I interact with an animal, it's going to be very different than if I interact with this tree, or if I'm interacting with a rock, right? Very different potential interaction there of the kind of space that you might be in. you can just think about how you are throughout the day. Like you're interacting with yourself in all these different ways, depending on what's happening in the mood. Have you, like, there's so many factors going on, and it's a different aspect of you showing up in a beautiful, different, unique aspect of us showing up every moment, right? I've had many different aspects show up just in this conversation, probably, if I wouldn't really thought about it. On the one hand, I'm like being a channel for information that's coming through. On the other hand, I'm kind of processing it at different times through my bias and my own thoughts and feelings. There's a lot of different things happening just here in this one 5.5 minute conversation. So I don't know if that makes any sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to you. And hopefully it is a good follow-on to the last thing that I was talking about. Awesome. Okay, bye.